somewhere in my career, I realized that I was really, really, really bad at making good decisions. I was a founder of 7 startups, 3 of which were fairly successful, 4 of which were spectacular failures. Like proper award-winning, Oscar-winning failure moments. Did I? Yeah. One of them was was when I took all of my money and all of the money that all of the banks would lend me and all of the credit cards would lend me and every other piece of money from anyone I ever met and bet everything on a TV channel, which is it's like buying a yacht. I mean, you're going to lose money straight away anyway. So put all of the money into this thing and then hope. I actually Googled setting up a TV channel. That was my entire strategy. I downloaded the PDF and followed the instructions. One of the things that happened, however, is that I trusted the wrong guy. And within 24 hours, 10 years ago and 6 days from now, back then, I lost everything. He withdrew all of the money out of the back that I was putting in at the front. And every single thing in my life that I'd ever built from that moment collapsed. So I'm driving down the motorway at 110, 120 miles an hour, unless there's police watching, in which case it was 70, 50, something. I'm going really fast-ish, and I'm thinking, right, I have to get out of this situation. There's no way I can explain this to the woman I was married to at the time, to our 2 young children. I've worked so hard to build all of this, and now I've lost everything. So I'm thinking, and I'm going to have to return this car as well, right? So I'm driving, and I'm thinking, all I need to do is just do this, and it's over. Just that. It's just a flick. I won't feel anything. And the reason I didn't move my hands was something that over the last 10 years has become more and more and more obvious. But at the time, it wasn't obvious. I just had a clue. I had a clue that within all of the stuff in my life that I had now thrown away and lost, there was this something else that mattered. And as the years went on, obviously I had to start again. So I started from the bottom in 2005, started everything again. And I started to realize that all of the things that I thought were important up until the car journey were not. But the problem was I didn't know what was. I just knew that what wasn't. So the fact that we had to sell all the houses and sell the property company and sell the cars and everything else like that became less painful as I realized that it meant nothing. And the fact that all of my friends who only liked me because I was rich disappeared when I was poor meant nothing. And as the years went on towards today, the noise around the edge of my signal just went down and down and down. It reduced as time went on, to a point where 2 years ago when I was standing on this same stage, I was speaking about the difference between signal and noise, and I was reaching at that moment a really critical time in my life where there was only a small amount of noise left. And there was an increasing amount of signal in place. And despite the graphic, I'm not talking about Wi-Fi. We all know that's the main thing, right? But it was interesting. It was interesting because now where I am is at a position which is totally different than 10 years ago in terms of various different parts of the noise, but in terms of the signal, I now have it. And what I'm now trying to do is enable other people to find their signal. And it turns out that that's my main thing. And what's interesting is that by expanding people's thoughts, I've noticed that we're not necessarily in the right environment to do that sometimes. Some of you may be more on the right-hand side of this picture, some of you may be more on the left, I don't know. But we're not necessarily always in the place where we can actually find whatever the purpose or our signal actually is. And that's just people. If you actually look around everything, every object, there is also a purpose behind everything as well that exists. I don't know if any of you know any kind of Greek philosophy, but this is actually a study of teleology. And teleology comes from the days of Aristotle and Socrates, where telos is purpose, and teleology is a study of an object's purpose or an intention. So I'll give you an example. For instance, if we look around and we look at maybe something like this, Airbnb, who are obviously one of the largest hotel chains in terms of value, certainly the world's largest accommodation provider, with no real estate whatsoever, we would look at this and think, but okay, so it's kind of a hotel renting accommodation thing. But the reality is, if you step back and you remove the noise, remove all of the noise, and look at the signal in the middle, what this actually is linking surplus to demand through accessibility. It's the same as if we look at Kickstarter. We can look at Kickstarter and think a number of things. One, how can a card game about exploding kittens raise $8 million? But two, the reality is that this isn't about Kickstarter as a brand. This isn't about a website. If we take a step back and remove all of the noise around the edge, everything we look at has something that's underlying it. This is linking belief to production through investment, right? If we look around the world, even in other places, slightly more odd inventions, like the assassination market and the dark web. You know the deep web, right? It's 300 times larger than the internet that you know and love. Almost totally unpoliceable, whatever you read. This is something called deadpooling, where people actually predict the death of a famous person, and they put in a bid using bitcoins or any other cryptocurrency, and then whenever the date actually happens, then you win. So if you look at things like this, these crazy inventions that you think, oh, wow, I didn't know that existed, you should see the contents of, no, actually, this is not something you want to look into. But the reality is that it's actually linking motivation to revolution through collaboration. Let's look around elsewhere. What about this? This is a hotel in Japan where you could go with your virtual girlfriend. This is reducing the birth rate in various parts of Japan. And it's amazing to think, actually, there's about 11% of men in Tokyo that would prefer to have a virtual girlfriend than a real one. Now, I have heard, but I can't substantiate, that about 79% of females think they'd prefer a virtual male. But the interesting thing is when we look at this for what's really going on here, and we step back and we remove the noise and we concentrate on the signal, the main thing that's happening here is it's linking emotion to relationships through technology, right? If we look at some other amazing inventions, look at this. I mean, I know what you're thinking. One, that's the most genius thing I've ever seen in my life. I wish I'd invented it. Two, what's the web address that I can buy some? I know. And yes, I have it. But the reality is what we tend to do when we things that we laugh or we throw it away, it's irrelevant, it doesn't mean anything to us. But all of these things actually have an inner telos, an inner purpose, a main thing. This is linking behavior to purpose through design. If we check out the Lego strip club, it's even more interesting. And I know what you're thinking. Nilton's got loads of material for the comedy section later, but you might be thinking, she can't be that much good of a stripper because she can't bend her legs? I don't know. I don't want to put words in your head, but what I think when I look at this is, what's really going on if we step back and we remove the noise and we concentrate on the signal? What this actually is linking demand to innovation through adjustment. That's what's happening here. And then when we make it more personal and we look at people, and we think, what's your main thing? We can look at what this particular person stood for and stands for, still in retrospect, is linking vision to change through persistence. But I want you to think of one word in your head when you look at this slide and think, what do you think the main thing was? If it's one word, what do you think it was? Yeah, it's freedom. Right? The reality of it all is, I think we have one of these. I think we do have a purpose. And so I started to think to myself, how can I find my version over the last 10 years? So I started by looking into what purpose meant and what telos was. So for instance, the purpose of a knife, if you think about it, is to cut. The purpose of a shoe is to cushion. But how can we find out? What's the practical way of us finding purpose? And I felt, personally, I got a suspicion that my reason was going to be something to do with stuff I really loved, stuff that I was good at, and stuff that I could actually add value doing. And those three circles, if you think about those three circles, for me, I was like, okay, so what am I good at? Well, because I was bullied for 11 years at school, from 5 till 16, anyone in here who's ever been through that elongated level of physical and mental abuse will know that you have a number of various different choices, one of which is that you're not necessarily bound to always be on the ground. It's actually down to you to continue to stand up. But the second thing that you realize is that there's shortcuts out. And one of them is by showing off, being funny, making the bullies look cool, or making them look stupid and then learning how to run really quick. But nonetheless, I was good at enabling people to think differently from a stage. Secondly, that talent and that passion, the passion of wanting to do that, turned out to give value. And so that's actually how I found my main thing, which is what brought me to the stage here 2 years ago. And speak about unlocking that now. These years since everything went away have been the most defining years of my life, watching 2 children grow up and making sure that I can support them whatever happens, despite the fact that I was so far in debt and so far on my back. It was just a similar moment to being orphaned at birth or being bullied or whatever. It's the same. I just saw it in the same way. And underneath all of the circumstances that I've ever been through, and underneath all of the dramas and the noise and the money or the no money, or the clothes or the no clothes, or the fast cars or the slow cars, and the big houses and the small houses, throughout all of that, there's just the main thing. Mine is to enable you to find yours. And yours, if you find yours as the main thing, is that the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Thank you.